Let's get more now on the federal government's proposal for new laws that would require major merger and acquisition proposals to seek approval from the competition regulator. We are joined by Graham Samuel, who's the former chair of the ACCC. Mr. Samuel, thank you so much for joining us on the ABC News channel this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Australia's merger laws have remained basically unchanged since the 70s. We're one of only 3 countries in the world where notifying the competition regulator of a merger or acquisition is optional. What impact has that had on the economy over time?
I'm not sure it's had a significant impact. In fact, at the International Competition Network, where all the regulators gather together, they used to look upon our voluntary process with some envy because it tended to work. But I think that what the government is now proposing with the work that's been done over the past few months is a series of very sensible reforms to the merger process as far as the ACCC is concerned.
And how does this proposal compare to what the ACCC has been calling for in this space?
Well, it's been very interesting because I think what the Treasurer has done has struck a sensible way through the process so that disciplines are imposed both on business but also on the ACCC itself in terms of timelines. And so what we've now got is compulsory notification of mergers above a certain threshold. We've got a modified substantial lessening of competition test, that's the economic test, although I'm not sure the modifications really have a great impact at all in the end, but yeah, they're there and they won't do any harm. We've also got some timelines being imposed on the ACCC, which I think are important because the ACCC has tended of more recent years to take many, many months, if not years, to consider mergers. And some might have suggested that they were using the delay process in the hope that the mergers would go away. Well, that didn't happen, of course, in a number of cases. We've taken the federal court out of the process, and I think that's sensible. We've substituted that now in terms of appeals with the competition tribunal, and the tribunal comprises a federal court judge, an economist and a business person. So that gives a very, very useful mix of disciplines to consider appeals from ACCC decisions. So I think in all, the processes are very good indeed. They've made an attempt to deal with what are called creeping acquisitions. Back in my time, one of the most significant of those was cab charge, which used to acquire 3 or 4 taxi licenses at a time, or very, very small businesses. And they're attempting to deal with that by allowing a sort of a throwback, a read back over 3 years to see what might happen or what might have happened in terms of small acquisitions. I think that's sensible. Whether it will deal with the creeping acquisition problem in total, I'm not too sure. I think there might be some improvements that are needed there. But overall, the Treasurer has struck a very good balance between disciplining business and imposing disciplines on the ACCC, and fortunately has rejected some of the regulatory overreach that was being promoted by my predecessor Alan Fells and my successor Rod Sims, which I think would have done a lot of damage to the whole process of mergers and the economy generally.
And Graham Samuel, I just wanted to ask you about the timeline as well, because these proposed changes wouldn't be brought in until 2026. Do you think they should be brought in sooner than that?
Frankly, I'd have brought them in 1st of July 2024, but I don't think that the changes are that significant as far as business and their legal advisors are concerned that they need nearly 2 years to be able to sort things out. These are changes that have been in the offing now for some time, for some, well, not only months, but for some years. And the processes involved are intended to streamline the merger process, to make it simpler, to remove some of the options that business might have had before, which became known as cherry picking or forum shopping. And it seemed to me that these are sorts of changes that could be introduced almost immediately, frankly, and I would have chosen 1st of July 24.
Do we have a sense of, the proportion of attempted mergers in this country that do have the potential to be harmful to competition in the market?
Back when I was chair of the ACCC, we used to consider upwards of 400 to 500 merger applications each year under the voluntary system. I think the number now is something around 300. Of those, probably 5% ran into hurdles. The remainder were waved through because they didn't seem to cause a substantial lessening of competition. So the problem I think that's arisen over recent years is that the merger process, the merger clearance and authorisation process has become very complex. It has allowed some forum shopping by business. There have been long delays. Back in my time, we tried to institute some very significant timelines imposed on the ACCC and on business in dealing with mergers that were measured in terms of weeks rather than months or years. And we've seen those timelines stretch out over recent years to, well, upwards of 18 months and 2 years in some more recent significant mergers. So I think it's important that we've dealt with just that. The economics of mergers, I've seen there's been some reference to this bringing into account more economic considerations. The consideration of a merger was always economic. It had to be economic, and the lawyers had to learn the art of economics and what were markets and what was competition and what was substantial lessening of competition to be able to properly advise in this area. So economics has been an important consideration. I should say, by the way, I think that there's I always used to say to applicants for mergers or for merger clearance that there was a very, very simple test. And this was a test I think that my merger Commissioner Stephen King used to also apply. And that is, if this merger takes place, will it be easier for the merged parties to raise prices or to lower the quality of what they're offering in terms of products or services? If the answer to that is possibly yes, you've got a problem. If the answer is no, of course not, then I don't think you've got a problem because competition prevails.
That seems like a very sensible test. Graham Samuel, former chair of the ACCC, thank you so much for your time on the News Channel this morning.
Thanks, Ruby.